Okay, you guys, so this next part, it tells us what the center is, and then it gives us another point on the circle. So what does that look like? Well, if it gives us the center, and that center is at -1 and 9, okay, let's just say that's 9 there. So this is my center. And it also goes through the point 2, 5, which is over here, okay, 2, 5. Then there's going to be a radius from here to here, and the circle is going to kind of go around. I know this is a terrible circle, but you get where I'm going with this, right? So our radius is from here to here, from this point to this point. So the question is, if I am given 2 points, can I figure out how far apart they are from each other? And the answer is, yes, you can. So the long answer is, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a slope triangle for that line, and we're going to figure out how far it goes up, which is the y, and we're going to figure out how far it goes over, which is the x, and one of those numbers is going to be our a, and one of those numbers is going to be our b, and then we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, which is, as we all know, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, but instead of c squared, I'm going to call it r squared because it actually is the radius, so we don't get confused. So how can I figure out how tall it is? How can I figure out the distance if y is 5 and here y is 9? So how many numbers are in between 5 and 9? So that's 4. So my distance up is 4, okay? From 5 to 9 is 4. And then the distance on the x from -1 to 2, so how far apart are -1 and 2 on the x-axis, okay? Here's -1, here's 2. Well, that's 3. So I know I drew it, it looks funny because the longer side is actually shorter, but that's 3. So if my a is 4, and my b is 3, I can now do the Pythagorean theorem. So I have 4 squared plus 3 squared equals r squared. So 4 squared is really 16. 3 squared is really 9. Okay, 16 plus 9 is 25 is r squared. Now I know you want to know how long is the radius, and the radius is obviously 5. If I square my radius and I get 25, obviously my radius is 5, right? Take the square root of both sides. But I don't care. I don't even need the actual radius because the equation uses the radius squared, right? The equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, right? I know r squared. R squared is 25. Okay, so the rest of this is going to be x minus, what was my center point? It was minus -1, so that's going to be x plus 1 squared plus y minus 9 squared equals 25. So I did all of that to figure out, right, r squared, which is 25. That's the only other thing I needed to figure out to create my equation. So we know the center. I'm just going to highlight the center in each of these. And I'm going to help you find the radius. And then I'm going to make you write the equation on your own. Okay? So the question first is, and it doesn't matter which is A or which is B, so don't get mad if I do this differently. But how far is it from -2 to -10? And even though they're both negative, we're not going to say it's negative because we're talking about distance, and distance is always positive. But if I go on the number line from -2 all the way down to -10, like if I were walking those blocks, I would have had to have walked 8 blocks, right, on a number line. Then to get from -5 to -20, I'm going to have to walk 15 blocks, right? But those are both positive blocks, even though everything's negative. I've walked I've walked positive distance. Okay, so 8 squared a squared plus b squared, which is 15 squared, is equal to r squared. So 64 plus 225. I have those memorized. I have since 6th grade. That's why I was able to do that without a calculator. Is equal to r squared. 64 and 225 is 289, which is r squared. And you can stop here because this is the number you need to put into the equation. If you did find the square root, though, it should be 7. Our actual radius is 7. Okay. All right, let's do this. How many blocks are between 12 and negative 12? So think about it. We have negative 12 here. Don't forget we have 0. And then we have positive 12. Okay, so between 12 and negative 12 are 24 blocks. So let's say A is equal to 24. And B is the number between the y's. So we have between negative 3 and positive 7. And that's going to be from negative 3 to 0 is 3. And then from 0 to 7 is 7. So that's going to be 10. Okay? Let me help you set up the equation, but I'll make you solve it. So you have 24 squared plus 10 squared equals r squared. If you just put this in the calculator like this, it should give you the answer that you need. Okay, so here, let's see, A is going to be how many blocks from negative 6 to negative 2, and that's going to be 4, I think. And B, check me for mistakes, me and my mental math, between negative 4 and negative 1 is 3. Oh, my radius here is going to be 5, you guys. If any of the sides of a right triangle are 3 and 4, then the hypotenuse is 5. Fun trick. Okay, do not forget to write the equations for these. The answer for these is, I'll highlight in blue. You have to write the equation. Okay? All right. Please let me know tomorrow if you have any more questions.